Hi, good morning, Reid. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. How's your morning going?
It's good. It's bright and early, but it's good.
And how's your quarantine going?
You know, at this point, I've become so accustomed to it. You know what I mean? It's just like every day it's the same room. I just wake up, it's my room. Go to bed, it's my room. It's just no. It's the I've been able to go out more and see my friends more. It's everyone's being really safe, and it's I feel, and the numbers are going down, which is good. So I've been able to actually get out of the house, but still being extremely careful, wearing my mask, and obviously not going to like a mall or anything crazy
Right,
like that. So it's just been very like, pick and choose what makes the most sense and what's the safest thing to do.
right. So I watched the film the other night. You give such a remarkable, brilliant performance. I can imagine how tough that must have been for you as an actor, emotionally, physically, mentally. So take me back to the beginning. How did you first hear of the project?
So, well, first of all, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed my performance.
Mhm.
So I actually hadn't heard of this story until until the script first came my way in 2018. Late 2018 is when I first heard of it. I had my first round of auditions for it, and then director switched, and then I was brought back in 2019, and I got the full script, and I remember immediately connecting to Jadin as a person,
Mhm.
especially after doing research.
Right.
And as a kid, when I was younger, I grew up in a very sports-oriented town, in a smaller town in Texas, and I was very much not understood. I was not a sports guy. I am clearly not a football player, as you can tell. Um, and I always wanted to do art. I always wanted to do film, and they didn't quite get that. And I was subject to bullying and people who just didn't quite care nor want to care. And so I really connected with him in that way. And I always have to preface when I say that with what I went through was nowhere near anything what he went through. So I don't want it to sound like I'm comparing at all, because I'm
Right.
not. I mean, Jadin was on a daily basis basically tormented by the people at his school, and I was not subject to anything like that. I was just not understood and bullied for like my height, like dumb things like that. You know what I mean? And so I don't
Right.
ever want to compare, because I cannot even begin to imagine the pain he must have felt. But we do have the commonality of that loneliness and that feeling of not being understood. And I think that allowed me to go to those places and to feel what he felt. And I think the moment I knew I was born to play this role, and I was born to tell his story, was during my first fitting. I wore his clothes for
Wow.
the film, and his clothes fit perfectly.
Wow.
It was, and my mom was with me, because it was a very like the shoot was a very heavy shoot. It was very intense.
Wow.
I'm a person who deals with anxiety, and when I'm under stress, I'll forget to eat, and so I'm like, I need you there, because I'm gonna forget to eat, and then I'm gonna feel sick. And so she was with me at the fitting, and it was a very heavy emotional moment for everyone, because it was like, it may not seem like a big deal, but there was something about the fact that his clothes fit me so perfectly, and like I could smell him off of his clothes. I mean, it was just a lot. It was a lot to take in.
Yeah.
um, and going to those places and allowing myself to really in a way be guided by him was very challenging. because it was allowing myself to go to those places was really hard. You know what I mean? Just emotionally and mentally. And more importantly, it was finding that line between me and him that was really, really important. Because as an actor, you know, I don't want to like get into this because I think it's a little overblown, but there definitely is a certain line that I think some people can cross as an actor when they play certain roles that takes a toll. Where, you know, you hear some actors go, you know, that they'll talk about how they really became that person and it was hard to like unplug themselves. And it's true. It's very true, especially for a role like this where you're playing a real person who suffered, you know what I mean? In a role that I closely relate to. It was, you know, I used to think that some of that stuff was a little bit of hoopla, you know what I mean? Like I didn't really know, but having gone through it, it's completely accurate. It's, you really have to keep your boundaries, especially when I met the family and discussed Jadin and Joe with, you know, Jadin's mother, Lola.
Right.
And, you know, she would always say, you know, how much I remind her of him. And all these things. And at the time, my hair was blonde. And when she would say that, it was such a compliment, but it was also, for me, a sobering moment to remind myself that I'm not him. Because when you go to work every day and people call you by like your character name,
Yeah.
they don't mean anything by it, but it can be mentally a little harmful. And not that they were intending that, but when you're just so deep in that role, you have to remind people to call you by like Reid. You know what I mean? Just to, as a reminder, a subtle reminder that you're not him,
Right.
because it can be hard to pull yourself out of that.
Yeah, I can imagine. And so the producers were saying that you really blew them away at the first chemistry read with Mark Wahlberg. So can you talk a little about that experience?
That was it was pretty crazy because it was like, you know, I grew up watching Mark Wahlberg. I love Mark Wahlberg. I love his films. I remember seeing Transformers in theaters with my dad. You know what I mean? Like just a lot of memories of him on the big screen. So I actually remember I was sitting in my living room, um, and I had just sent in my callback tape, maybe like a week, 2 weeks ago, and I got an email from my agent about the chemistry read. And at the time, no one knew Mark was attached. It wasn't public knowledge, and I didn't know either. So I got the email about it, and I was reading it as a chemistry read with Mark Wahlberg at Mark Wahlberg's house. And I was like, holy, like, I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I was like, hang on, hang on, hang on. And I was like freaking out because it was like, I'm about to meet Mark Wahlberg. I'm going to read with Mark Wahlberg. And you know, we pulled up to his house and it's just this huge place. And it's like, okay, we're here. You know what I mean? Like, how do you prepare for that? But and I went in and there were other, you know, there were other boys there who were reading with him for the role. And when I went in, of course, I was very nervous because the other people that were there were people that you would know. I'm not going to say who, but I knew these people. I recognized them. And I was like, I'm so out of my element. Like I've never done anything this big. Like why am I even here? like one of these kids is gonna get it. And then Mark walked out, and he was so kind. He was so nice, and I immediately kind of relaxed. I was like, okay, like I am here for a reason. I wouldn't be here, you know, I wouldn't be here for nothing. They obviously see something in me, and that helped me kind of, you know, take a breath and remember, and I'm here for a reason. And he brought me back, and I got to talk to him. And when I talked to him, it felt like I was talking to my dad. You know what I mean? Like there was that instant sort of connection. And it was even more apparent when we read the script. And after that, he was walking me out of the room, and it was so funny. He looked at me and he was like, you know, just talking to you, I feel like I'm talking to my son. And the fact that, and I hadn't even said anything about how I felt about him. So to know that we felt the same thing, like vice versa, was very, I sort of knew. Like in that moment, I was like, I think I'm going to get this part. But you never know. You never know. You know what I mean? It's like you think one thing and then, you know, you either never hear back or you get an audition and it goes terrible and suddenly you're on set the next week for that same thing. I mean, you never know. And so, and then like a week or 2 weeks later, I got my final call back with him, and I went to his house, and at the time I didn't know it was the final one. And I was there with my manager because my mom was out of town, and his assistant was like, would you like anything for breakfast? And I was like, you know, is this a test? Like, you know, you hear about auditions where they'll put the bottle of water in front of you, and it's like a test to see if you're nervous, and they're like, come on, they're gonna see if you drink the water. And if you don't drink the water, you're not gonna get the part. So she was like, you want breakfast? I was like, I want the biggest breakfast you can make me. You know what I mean? I was like, do your worst. I'm not nervous. She brought me a stack of chocolate chip pancakes, eggs, bacon. I'm a small dude. My stomach's this big, but I made it work. I almost ate the whole plate. And Mark came down and was like, all right, let's read. And I read it, and he and the director, Ray, stepped out of the room for a moment. They called me out, and I walked out, and Mark gave me the role in person. And that was a really cool experience. And it told me a lot about Mark. The fact that he wanted to tell me himself. And he's just such a great guy. And it was just so cool reading with him and having that instant connection.
What was it like shooting the Gaga scene with him? Singing with Marky Mark.
It was great. You know, it was, again, because of the material and our connection, you know, we were able to connect on a much deeper level than the material. And so that scene, it was so light and just so natural for me and him, because we do have a very funny like banter. So it was so, it was so natural, and it was just so like, all right, we're gonna do it in like 2 takes. That's all it took, because it was just me and him just being us and being ourselves, and having a really cool moment. And I love that scene so much in particular, because it really shows their connection. Like, they didn't see eye to eye on a lot. It's early, but I'm trying to not. Yeah. Oh no. I had an interview at like 6 o'clock this morning, so I'm like, no. But it was it's such a great scene because it shows their connection and their understanding for each other. Again, they didn't see eye to eye on a lot, but it was really nice to show that they do love each other, even if sometimes they want to kill each other. You know what I mean? It's like they love each other. It's like with every relationship or a parental relationship, even if you don't always see eye to eye, you do still love each other. So I really enjoyed getting to show that side of the relationship.
Yeah, and speaking about family, you said Connie Britton, it was like filming with a warm blanket, but it was just, she was so warm. So can you talk a little about working with her and filming those key scenes with her?
Yeah, of course. She, you know, I think on any production, on any movie project, whatever, when you're doing a scene or doing a film that's so heavy and requires you to be absolutely vulnerable and open with people that you don't really know, it's so important that you're surrounded by people that are supportive. And Mark was so supportive. The director was so supportive. Everyone was. And Connie in particular is naturally just a very kind person, like very nice. Like she's like everyone's mom. And I mean that in the nicest way. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean she has a very motherly way about her. And so doing those scenes was not easy, but it was very comforting to do those scenes with her in particular, because she would always give you like this big hug afterwards, and it would always just help like ground you, you know, after going to a really dark place. She would always be there to help sort of bring you back. And she's just a wonderful actor. She's phenomenal. So getting to act with her was amazing. I mean, I love her in Nashville. Like she's so good. And so getting to work with her was just an honor, but also getting to work with her was very comforting.
And I'm totally running out of time, so I want to ask you about the films that you've written and directed and starred in. And I don't want to mispronounce it. Is it Jaeger?
Yes, Jaeger.
Okay, so tell me about that, how you got involved with directing and writing, and how that felt like the right next step for you.
Absolutely. Well, you know, before acting, I had always been writing. I'd always been creating. Like the first stuff I started out doing, movie related, if you can even call it that, was like stop motion videos that I would make and put on like my YouTube, or oh no, not my YouTube, I'm sorry, my Facebook. That's where all my fans were. By fans, I mean the people in my church. And so my family. So I started out doing stop motion, and that with like my sister's old like Walmart camera. Like it was like this big, and it was like white, and the photos were terrible. And the wait time, you'd have to hold the button down for like 3 seconds to even get it to take a photo. So I would be shooting these like 30-second videos for days. But I loved it. And it was like, that's sort of how I got started in creating things and creating film. And I got my first computer and I started writing. I'd write stories, but they would always be in script format. And I didn't know what a script even looked like. It was just in that format. That's just how I did it. And then I started acting, and I was looking at these scripts, and I was like, wait a minute. I was like, this is how I write stuff. Like, and so I really started getting into writing. And I directed my first thing in 2018. It was a short film called Flicker. And it was kind of inspired by my love for American Psycho. It's one of my favorite movies, so I sort of wanted to write a love letter to that movie. It's on Amazon Prime, actually. And then my next project was Jaeger. Pretty big jump from a short film to a microfeature.
Right.
But I love action. I'm a martial artist. I've been a martial artist since I can remember. I'm a black belt. I do a lot of my own stunts. I do a lot of hand-to-hand choreography and stunt work. And I wanted to do a film that I wrote, that I directed, that I starred in. That was like a love letter to John Wick, to classic 80s action movies. And I was very lucky to get the team that I did and to get to work with who I got to work with and get it made. And it turned out great, especially considering we had no budget. You know, we're hoping to release that on Amazon in the next few weeks, just trying to get some like credit stuff fixed. But I mean, it's, you know, it's really great that I'm able to do both. And I think that's a positive out of quarantine, was it sort of forced me to write and be creative. So I do have a lot of things that are on the fire right now that I'm hoping to release in the next year, 2 years or so. So that'll be really cool.
Yeah. And finally, what have you been watching? What have you liked really recently?
Oh man, that's other than the Batman trailer on repeat. I would
Yes.
say um, I've really just been like I watch movies already, like even before quarantine, just movies that I want to be in. So I've really been able to just catch up on all these movies I haven't been able to see. I was able to see Tenet last week at a theater. It's like 40 minutes away, but I was able to go see it, and that was such a cool experience because my dad was in town. So I got to see that with him. But yeah, just mostly catching up on movies that inspire me, like the John Wick movies, or I really love Christopher Nolan's films. Just a lot of movies like that, and just focusing on honing my acting even more as I start working on new projects, and just hoping to get better and better with each one.
Mhm. Well, I mean, you can. This one was incredible. So I don't
Thank
know how
you.
you're gonna top this one, but I
I don't know.
can't
I
wait to
think
find
I've
it.
peaked. This is it. Where do I go from here?
You retire. You just
That's
retire with
it.
it.
That's it. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. I really appreciate
Thank
you
you.
taking the time.
Of course.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.